Well, we psychologically deconstructed our dear captain in The Enemy Within, and people seem to dig it. So let's do it with the whole crew. A guest star goofs up and accidentally brings a disease on board that puts all of the crew's inner secrets, fears, and other hang-ups on display. Grab your rapier and your butter knife as we dive headlong into the naked time. Hit it!
Hey!
So this isn't my favorite episode of the series, but it's up there for sure. Lots of amazing character stuff in this one, and everybody turns in an amazing performance. Nurse Chapel, played by Majel Barrett, makes her debut in this episode, and this episode gives us the first of two appearances of one of my favorite recurring crew members, Bruce Hyde as Lieutenant Kevin Riley. This kid is a joy to watch, and it's a tragedy that he wasn't used more in the show. Stuart Moss does a great job as Lieutenant Junior Grade Tormolen, too. It's not as puzzling why he didn't return to the show, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here as we take a look at the plot. The Enterprise shows up to Psi 2000 to pick up a science team there who's supposed to be studying the imminent breakup of the planet, but they've gone silent. And Spock and Lieutenant Joe Tormolen beam down in environment suits to see what happened. They find the lab frozen over and everybody dead. They spread out to take some readings, but Joe gotta scratch his nose. So he takes off his glove, touches his face, and then touches this dead guy's desk. While he's up under there, presumably looking for some chewing gum to drag his tongue across too, some red sauce jumps on his hand. He stands up, jams his hand into his mask again, and then puts his glove on just in time for Spock to come in and say, "Don't touch nothing." Stellar job, Joe. That's Starfleet training, boy. You can't beat it, eh? Dingleberry. So they beam back to the ship, and Spock gets Scotty to hit them with decontamination lighting and head to sickbay for McCoy to check him out. Joe's suddenly seeming pretty torn up about the dead scientists. He's also rubbing his hand like there's something on there that he can't get off. Gee, Joe, what could that be? There's a briefing about the situation. These people didn't just die, something made them go crazy. Some of them was fighting, one of them froze in the shower with all his clothes on, others just sort of sat there and didn't do nothing so well that they croaked. If they're going to study the planet's breakup, the orbit's going to be tricky because sudden shifts in gravity and whatnot can come out of nowhere, so Kirk's concerned about whatever happened to the science team might happen on the ship too. And that's bad enough on its own, but with a collapsing planet underneath them, it's way worse. Spock says we've done all we can to detect any contamination, but the universe is still full of unknowns. Did you say something, Joe? No? I thought you might have said something there. You dingleberry. Speaking of Joe, he's having dinner when Sulu and Lieutenant Kevin Riley come in, and Sulu's trying to explain fencing to Riley. Like with a sword, not like vinyl fence. Anyway, Riley ain't getting it, and Sulu tries to get Joe to back him up. But Joe kind of freaks out, talking about how humans ain't supposed to be in space and they're goofing space up by being there. And he grabs a butter knife off of his tray, and before he can pull an Othello, Sulu and Riley jump in to try to stop him. But in the struggle, they fall to the ground and Joe gets buttered in the gut anyway. In the struggle, though, it looks like Riley and Sulu get whatever Joe brought back with him. Well, he gets rushed to sickbay, but despite his wounds not being all that bad, McCoy and Nurse Chapel can't save him. So long, Joe. Sulu and Riley are back on the bridge, the planet's collapse is in full swing, and they're both acting a little hinky. Suddenly, Sulu says he's going to go work out, and tries to get Riley to join him. Riley don't want to get in trouble, so he turns him down, but as soon as Spock notices Sulu is missing, Riley turns into a man proud of his Irish heritage in that way that only a schmuck from Cleveland with one Irish great-grandfather can, you know? Spock sends him to sickbay, where he learns that Joe died like a total dingleberry, and also infects Nurse Chapel before wandering off. Sulu's got his shirt off and is running around the ship with a fencing foil, terrorizing everybody and speaking in a, well, let's call it a dramatic accent. He makes it to the bridge, tries to save Uhura, and while Kirk tangles up with him, Spock hits him with the Vulcan nerve pinch. After hauling Sulu off to sickbay, the planet shifts and they can't seem to correct it. When Kirk calls down to engineering to ask what gives, Kevin Riley is the one who responds and announces to the whole crew that he's taken over the ship and locked everyone out of engineering. And then he starts singing. Scotty's working on getting back in there, and Spock goes down to tell him to hurry up, which is exactly what Scotty needs right now. Then he goes to see how McCoy's doing with a cure. An infected Chapel, though, corners Spock and confesses her love for him, and in the process, touches him. In the fastest transition from normal to bat cookies we've seen yet, he starts to slip, and he has to get out of there. Kirk joins Scotty as he's about to break into engineering, and as soon as they get in there and scoop up old Dublin O'Blarney Stone over here, Scotty notices that the guy has shut the engines down completely, and you can't just rip-start a matter-antimatter engine. It's gonna take 30 minutes, and by that time, they'll have crashed into the planet. Scotty says there's a theoretical way to do it faster, but it's gonna take Spock's brain to make it work. Kirk goes off to find him. In sickbay, we find out that McCoy has figured out the disease, and now he has a cure, but he needs the lab to start making more of it, and the lab guy has gone banana balls. Kirk finds Spock in the conference room where he's been really struggling with what Joe's disease is doing to him. Kirk tries to shake him out of it, telling him he needs to do the thing with the engines. Spock says it's never been done. Oh, and by the way, I'm in the middle of a breakdown here. Kirk tries that totally 60s thing of slapping the hysterical person, but Spock has seen that movie before and he slaps the bejesus out of Kirk back. Well, Kirk's been fighting Joe's disease since his tussle with Sulu, but he finally loses the fight and he starts a soliloquy about his love for the Enterprise and how it dominates his life, ensuring he'll be lonely forever. This seems to pull Spock out of his funk a bit, and he heads to engineering while Kirk heads for the bridge. As Kirk enters the bridge, McCoy juices him up with the cure, and in engineering, Scotty and Spock throw the switch. The experimental formula works, the engines start up, and the Enterprise blasts away from the collapsing planet. Only there's an unexpected side effect. The process sends the Enterprise back in time. By the time they reverse engines, they've traveled back 3 days in time. Kirk remarks that knowing how to time travel now opens up some possibilities for future missions. I wonder if we'll ever see that happen. We can only speculate as we roll credits. Great stuff. There is so much great stuff in this episode, it's hard to know where to start. Top of my list would have to be Spock's entire breakdown. Nimoy did an amazing job, and he nailed it in one take. My favorite line from this scene is this right here.
Jim, when I feel friendship for you, I'm ashamed. You've got to hear me!
There's so much in that one line. That he feels friendship for Kirk in the first place, that it's there despite his training in Vulcan emotional control, that he feels like it's a failure in that emotional control, and he feels shame over that, but it's not enough for him to give that friendship up. The implications of that line are really rather touching, and really give a great insight into the relationship between Kirk and Spock. His lament about how it must have been hard for his human mother to exist on Vulcan, and his one-on-one with Nurse Chapel, where we get this line right here.
Oh, I love you.
Sorry.
Captain is en route engineering, Mr. Spock. Can you take the bridge? Acknowledge.
I am sorry.
Christine.
Christine.
Adds so much depth to the character of Spock, and Leonard Nimoy plays it so masterfully that he should have won an Emmy at least. Nimoy said that his fan mail jumped from a couple of dozen a week to thousands after this episode, and I can totally see why. Kirk has a line in his conference room scene with Spock that is a kind of thesis statement to the character of Kirk.
Never lose you. Never.
This obsession with the Enterprise will come up numerous times in the series and later in the movies. Harry Mudd mentioned it a little bit in Mudd's Women, but it was more about starship captains in general. This is the first time we get a specific look at Kirk's relationship with the Enterprise. While it isn't a catchphrase exactly, this episode gave us one of Scotty's most quoted lines ever.
Scotty, I can't change the laws of physics. I've got to have 30 minutes.
It's almost weird now hearing him say that line in all seriousness, considering how many times it's been quoted to humorous effect over the years. That said, though, if someone could find a way to change the laws of physics, there are far worse bets on who that would be than Scotty. Sulu jumping around with the sword is a hoot, but the best line of the episode, and I think one of the best written and delivered lines in Star Trek as a whole, is Uhura's line right here.
Sulu!
I'll protect you, fair maiden.
Sorry, neither.
When I was a little possum, I never understood what that line meant. It wasn't until much later that it dawned on me that neither meant she was neither fair nor a maiden. The line itself is really clever and builds on the personality of Uhura we started to see emerge in the last episode, but I have to wonder if the censors at Paramount picked up on what she was saying, or if it just went over their heads too. I think Star Trek got away with something here, and I love it.
I'd like you to teach me that sometime.
Take D'Artagnan here to sickbay.
Scotty, we need power.
Did Spock just give someone a sarcastic name? Looks like Spock's part possum, huh? Who knew? So let's talk about this guy.
The roses all have left your cheeks. I've watched them fade away and die.
Kevin Riley is my favorite of the Bit podcast members. Like I said before, I can't believe they didn't make him a regular. He's personable, funny. When he was asking Chapel about Joe, you could see some potential there for playing sort of serious stuff, which we'll see more of when he comes back in his only other appearance. He's one that, like Harry Mudd, I wonder if we would have seen more of if the show had gotten its 4th and 5th seasons. You gotta love the guy. The Goof. Honestly, my only real beef with this episode is Joe Tormolin's almost comical ineptness with the environment suit thing. There's no way in hell anyone in their right mind would do the dumb stuff this Dingleberry does in that situation. You guys know I hate it when a plot is advanced because of either dumb luck or because a character did something completely bizarre that no one would do. It's weak writing. And it's little comfort that both Stuart Moss, who played Joe, and Mark Daniels, who directed the episode, were aware of this. When Moss brought up that he didn't think a trained Starfleet officer would be such a bonehead, Daniels allegedly replied, "Of course not, but if you don't do it, we don't have a show." I mean, I get that, but there's got to be a better, more plausible way to get the disease up to the ship other than, "Some of our science team are morons, what are you gonna do?" Ruminations. This episode's theme is basically that everyone has something inside them that they keep hidden or under control, and it executes that theme in a way only a science fiction show could really do, using a weird and implausible disease that somehow exposes that stuff. Science fiction is at its best when it's more about humans and stuff, and not so much with the technobabble. With all of the great character development this episode provided, I can't help feeling like characters like Uhura and McCoy kind of got shortchanged. We see both of them in situations where they would have been infected, but they didn't get any good character moments like the rest. Of course, there are only so many minutes in an episode, so I guess somebody was going to get left out, right? I like that this story comes up in other Star Trek shows, that it's kind of become a tradition. As I'm writing this, Strange New Worlds recently aired their version of this story, Subspace Rhapsody, which I really enjoyed. The Next Generation had their version too, of course, and that one was even a direct sequel to this, called The Naked Now. But we'll get there. Well, there you have it, The Naked Time. Which character was your favorite in this one, and why? Let me know down there in the comments. My favorite was Spock, but I gotta give a shout out to my boy Kevin. He ain't gonna be cutting an album anytime soon, but he was fun to watch. If you're digging the reviews here, reach down and like that thumbs up button so as I know you dug it, and it really helps the channel out. And spread it around. If you got some Star Trek friends or just people you know who dig possums, share out the video. The more the merrier around here. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss all the excitement of watching stuff with me, Possum Rob. Next episode asks the question, okay, yeah, Gary Mitchell, but what if he'd have been a teenager? Come back next time for Charlie X. Until then, possum friends are awesome friends. Take it easy, alright? Later.